Hey YouTube, I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be doing a follow-up video to my comparison video on the PSPs that I made years ago, back in 2011. This was probably my most popular video that I ever made, so I'm going to be making a follow-up. I got lots of requests going through the comments on that video to do a follow-up with the Vita, see how the Vita compares. So this is the Vita, the original one. So this is like the PSP. This is equivalent of the PSP Fat. PSP 1000 in terms of the Vitas. So I don't have a Vita Slim or whatever the second gen one is, but that's okay. We will talk about that at the end, how the Slim improved, but honestly, it's not that much different from the original one. It's just smaller. They didn't really change much of the hardware. So anyway, real quick, we'll go through the PSPs and then we'll do a comparison at the end. So PSP 1000. PSP 1000, it's the original one. It came out in 2004 in Japan, late 2004, and then it came out in 2005 in other regions. So it's the most iconic one. It's the one when I think of PSP. This is the one that comes to my mind. I imagine this one. It has the best ergonomics, best hands down ergonomics, mainly because of the flared out sides for the battery, and then I guess for parity they made the other side big too. So, quick pros of this, aside from the best ergonomics, solid build quality. It just feels really solid in the hand. It has the best UMD drive. So you see the UMD drive was the media they use for the games. It's a disc based here. It's a Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. So you see it's spring loaded. So best one, matte finish on the back. This is like personal preference, but I still consider it a positive as opposed to a negative of the system. So, negatives to it though, ghosting on the screen. So the screen, it had one of the worst screens out of the 4 PSPs. So it has a lot of ghosting. It's very noticeable in like fast motion 3D games with good graphics. So the Wi-Fi button placement is really odd. Sometimes people could bump that. People were complaining about turning it off. It had 32 megabytes of RAM, which is the lowest amount. The others all have 64, so they doubled it. But it's 32 megabytes of RAM. It's really, really small, especially when you compare it to the PS Vita. And the other big drawback was you could not charge the console, the handheld console, while it was on Wi-Fi. So no charging while on Wi-Fi, and the speaker placement was also kind of weird, being mounted at the bottom. So it's the PSP 1000. Still one of my favorite ones, just because of how iconic it is. Next we move on to the PSP 2000. So how the PSP 2000 improved over the 1000. It did more with less. So it had improved hardware, so you could have better battery life with lower spec hardware. So effectively both consoles had the same battery life, but you could also take the PSP 1000's battery, put it in this console, and get this little, like this cover thing, which actually had a higher amperage battery available with it as well, that you could then give you a flared out side for the PSP 2000, and then you could use that with better battery life. So it looked kind of weird though, because then it would like stick up like this. But that was it. So it had better potential for battery life, 64 megs of RAM, less ghosting on screen. You could charge while on Wi-Fi. That was a big improvement. So really, it improved in a lot of areas. The only negative is, in my opinion, because it's thinner, although it's kind of subjective, is the ergonomics aren't as good. It's not as easy to grip this console as the 1000 was, and the UMD drive was a cheaper design, so they went with this like door-based one, which is typically what happens with consoles with the revisions. They tend to get cheaper in terms of the implementation, the better ones in terms of the build quality. From a durability standpoint, the original ones seem to be holding up a lot better. So that's the 2000. For the 3000, was not a whole lot different from the 2000. Really what they did was they did some slight changes to the overall look of it. They rounded off the edges, make it a little bit more ergonomic. In practice though, like in terms of how that affects the usability, in my opinion, I still consider the two tied. Like, I don't think that really was that big of a difference to make any noticeable improvement. But that's just me. I still think the 1000 is easier to grip and use than the other two. They moved the logos around to be more in line with the PS3. So what I mean by that is the Sony logo on the original and the 2000 Sony logos over on the right side. They moved it to the left side. And they moved the PlayStation logo, which was originally on the left side, down to the home button. So originally it was called the home button. You can see there's home button. They made it the PlayStation button to be more in line with the PlayStation 3, because the PlayStation 3 had the home or the PS button in the middle of the controller. So they did that. Where they really improved it was the screen, or they attempted to at least. So the screen had improved color depth, and the response time was a lot better. There was little to no ghosting compared to the other two, especially the 1000. However, it did introduce this odd interlacing effect. I don't really see it being picked up on the camera that well, but I can notice it. It's not too big of a deal. Like, I don't consider that a deal breaker. Some people really complained about the interlacing though. But it had better color depth and better response time. So overall, I think the screen was an improvement over at least the 1000. Not so much the 2000, because the 2000 didn't have the interlacing problem. But that was really the only downside of this thing. They also shrunk the thickness of the ring for the UMD drive. Like the 2000 is really noticeable there. But that's really more of like an industrial design upgrade in terms of the appearance. So that doesn't really detract from the usability. So it's like a personal thing. So 3000, that's basically 3000 for the Go. The Go is the biggest change in terms of the form factor. As you can see here, it's like really different. So it has a flip-up design. The nice thing about it is very fast and responsive. It has 16 gigabytes. So you notice it has like it has the memory stick, and then it has the system storage. The other three never had any storage. You had to buy a Memory Stick Pro Duo to save games or even download games and put them on the storage. So in the early days of the console, of the PSP, that was kind of a nuisance. So what I ended up doing was, for me, like all four of these have 32 gigs of storage. All three of the PSP, like those PSPs with UMD drives, have the like a Memory Stick Pro Duo that I think I forgot, it's like two memory sticks, two micro SDs in a little adapter in this memory stick. So 32 gigs on there, and then this one has 16 built in, and then I added a 16 gig memory, like an M2. So what they did was we'll go through the pros first and we'll talk about the cons of this thing. So like I said, 16 gigabytes of built-in flash storage, so you don't need to go and immediately buy a memory stick. They fixed the interlacing problems the 3000 had, while maintaining the color and the response time. So it has the best screen overall. It's also slightly smaller, so it has a more sharper, crisp pixel resolution, because it's just smaller with the same resolution. They also introduced this docking station for outputting video and audio to actually, I'm not sure if the audio goes. Yeah, actually it does. Yeah. So the video and the audio does go out to, I'm pretty sure the audio does. Yeah, it has to, because I remember, yeah, it does. So they had this nice docking station for the PSP Go. It's exclusive to the PSP Go. So you could use the docking station to output video to the TV. It could also be used with third-party upscalers to capture the video and audio, effectively making this the prototype to what the PS TV or the Vita TV is today. The other thing is that it had Bluetooth functionality, as is seen with the Bluetooth logo here. So you could pair it with a PS3 controller and make use of the console as kind of like a cut-down version of a PS3, effectively. So that's the PSP Go. The negatives are there's no UMD drive, and it has the worst ergonomics in terms of the usability, although I feel like for a small kid, like a kid, it's probably not a problem. Like, they don't have any issue. But like for someone with big hands, it's probably nowhere near as good as the others, especially the 1000. 1000 wins hands down in terms of ergonomic use. It also introduced another proprietary flash memory, like I talked about earlier. It doesn't use Memory Stick Pro Duo, which I thought was kind of really odd that they went with another proprietary memory stick. So I think like the biggest one was 16 gigs, which is what I have. So 16 gigs of flash storage plus 16 gigs of the built-in system storage gives you 32. So effectively, like all of these are on 32 gigs of storage. So that's basically the PSPs in a nutshell. So now we're talking about the Vita. So the Vita improved like miles. It's like so much better than the PSP. For one thing, you can see it has a touchscreen and it has a lock screen, which the PSPs never had. So no one could like try to like break in, or they could and then they get locked out. So it had touchscreen functionality right off the bat. It was using a quad-core processor, like similar to what smartphones were using at the time. It has 512 megabytes of RAM, as opposed to the Go. The 2000, 3000 Go all have 64 megs of RAM. The 1000 had a measly 32. This one has 512. It had dual analog sticks. That was a big criticism of the PSP. All of them, actually. It has touchscreen, like I said. It also has rear touchscreen, like, or touchpad, I guess, which could be used. So a few games used. I know Uncharted made use of that. I'm not sure which other ones did. It also had front and rear facing cameras. So you can see the front cameras here, the rear facing cameras there. Bluetooth again, just like the Go. You could pair it with a PS3 controller. And it also did come with a docking station, but the docking station doesn't have as much functionality as the one that the Go has. But it still works. You could use it to charge, and you could output audio to speakers, or yeah, to a speaker system. But the biggest downside of the PSP Vita is there's no video out built in. So eventually they rectified that with the PlayStation TV. But I didn't like that you couldn't do that with the Vita, especially because you could do that with the Go, with the dock. At least with the dock, it would have been nice if they had video out, because effectively that would have made it like a really nice console. I hope that they revisit that idea of using a docking station with a portable console to effectively make a standard sit-down console, or I guess like a home theater console. And the other big downside was no built-in flash, at least on this one. The slim one, I think, does have some built-in flash to store stuff without having to buy a memory stick. But this one does have another proprietary memory stick format, I believe. And it's cartridge-based for the games as opposed to optical-based, which was UMD on these. And overall, it's slightly worse ergonomics out of the box compared to the 1000, although it's still better than all the other PSPs. And then you could get like custom, I guess, third-party stuff like this rubberized silicone covering that I have on mine, which greatly improves the ergonomics. As you can see, it's just a lot better. With this cover, it's equal to the PSP 1000. You could also get these things. I'm pretty sure you could get these also with the PSPs, like this sort of thing to make it more easier to hold. Like if I was going to use this a lot, I would use this. But if I was going to put it in my pocket, it's not really practical to use one of these little things that add the two sides. But definitely with this, it improves ergonomics and usability. But anyway, guys, that was it in terms of which one's my favorite. Obviously, the Vita is still my favorite because it's just way better. You could play PSP games on it. They're available on PSN. You could customize the different screens. You could set backgrounds. It's a lot more like a smartphone in terms of the usability. Second is probably the Go, because it was the pioneer in terms of a lot of the features that they eventually implemented with the Vita. And then my third favorite is probably the PSP 1000, because it's just the most iconic. It's the one that started it all. It was the first Sony portable console. So anyway, guys, that's going to be my comparison video of all the PSP, or all the PlayStation, like, portable devices. So, let me know in the comments which one's your favorite, and how you think that they could improve with the Vita in the future, or I guess with another portable console. So anyway, guys, Stay tuned for more videos in the future, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.